The Rebel Capitalist Show.
So I'm out with this gal, it's maybe late 20s or something like that. She pulls up this app on her phone to show me how cool it is. Right. I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on here? So she clicks on this, and it's like this map of the United States, and there are all these little dots going around the map. And I'm like, okay, well, what are those dots? Why is this cool? And she goes, because you can see where all your friends are. And I'm like, wait a minute here. Wait a minute. I said, you're telling me that you sign up to this voluntarily, and all your friends sign up to this voluntarily, so you can all see each other where your exact physical location where you are at all times. And she goes, yeah, it's so precise. I can see even when my friends are in the front of a building or in the back of a building. She's like, isn't that cool? And I'm like, I've got words for that, and cool is not one of them.
Well, I'll give you a feature that I bet she'd like even more. What if she didn't have to worry about these decisions she makes about when to pay how much of the credit card bill to pay off and all that stuff? What if it was automated for her? And the friendly folks at Facebook took care of making those day-to-day financial decisions for her. And they automatically just made the payment she needed to make and managed her cash flow so that she could just not think about money and trust Facebook to be in charge.
Yeah, right.
You and I might just laugh at that, but there's an entire generation who's like, what is wrong with these, okay, boomer idiots that don't get it? Like it's much better if Facebook automates all that, so I don't have to think about, how much credit they are deciding to let me run up just because they happen to have bought the creditor that's not obvious because it's all in a digital system that was designed to make it unobvious, that the regulators on the US government side that approved this, because they got suckered in by that offer of some free data collection, never thought about it, never realized the consequences of. If money itself is re-engineered and redesigned to do something differently, and the way the credit system works is re-engineered to operate differently than it does, whoever designs it has just as much advantage as, let's say, a nation that gains, control of space has militarily, because you can drop bombs on any country from a spaceship. You've got this profound advantage that nobody's going to regulate, nobody's going to understand. And we're going to get to a situation where there really is better money. And when Facebook or Google or whoever does it invents better digital money, it's going to be way better than Bitcoin. It's going to be way better than anything else we've seen. It's going to be convenient, easy, simple. It's going to seem to 90% of the population like it's just obviously better.
Right.
Once that happens, voices like you and me on podcasts saying, guys, you're not thinking about the consequences of this. Why did the federal government agree to this? What are they getting out of it? What does this mean for digital privacy rights? The people who worry about those things are a bunch of nutcases in the eyes of mainstream population. And I'm happy, I'm a proud nutcase in that case, but our
you and me
votes
both
are not going to change the outcome. But that's the important thing. It's the worst mistake that people who agree with us can make is to say, well, I don't believe that shit. I agree with Erik and George. So that's what's really going to go down. No, Erik and George are going to be overruled by a much, much larger majority of people who I think are misinformed, but there's more of them than there are of us, and they're in charge. We're the old guys. We're not in charge of what happens next in society. Millennials and Gen Z will decide that. And they are very much not on the same page you and I are. I mean, some of them are, but in terms of the social direction, what's next? Let's figure out what universal basic income is really going to mean to changing incentives in society, and start to think about how many decades it will take before we get through to getting people to recognize the consequences and knock-on effects that you and I see of eliminating the capitalist system of incentives. As soon as everybody is entitled to a certain basic income, it means nobody is given the imperative that in order to survive, you need to go and work hard, what you and I were taught. And then I think a lot of younger people hearing that would say, why in the world would you want to have that imperative? Isn't it better if people can just chill and enjoy life and live on their UBI? And what's your problem?
Yeah.
You and I have a philosophy that was instilled into us because of our generation that the generation that's in charge of things now doesn't agree with. and we need to get ready for change. We don't have to like it.
Yeah. Okay. So we've talked about all the technology and the central bank digital currency and Bitcoin and money. Give us your thoughts on oil, because I know that, in a past life you were in the technology space, but now, as of the last decade, you've really become an expert on the oil space. And I know that's something that's most of my audience is really interested in, commodities in general. So where are we right now with oil, and where do you see us going in the next year or two?
Crude oil is the biggest and most important commodity. It's the largest dollar volume of commodities ever traded because it is the source of energy for the entire global economy. And the problem that we face is that the ESG movement has made the decision to stop investing in new oil and gas exploration because everybody agrees that oil and gas should be phased out in favor of more sustainable energy solutions. I'm in complete agreement with that. There's one wee little problem. We've stopped making the investments in new oil and gas exploration already. And as far as I'm concerned, the advances that have been supposedly made towards electrifying the economy and replacing all the internal combustion engines with electric vehicles are completely inflated out of realistic proportion. Yes, it's a super important trend. It's exactly the right thing. It's what we should be doing. I'm all for the environmental agenda. But to think that in the course of, say, the next 10 years, we're going to eliminate the need for fossil fuels is ridiculous. We don't have a good solution for aircraft, even in the case of road vehicles, although electric vehicles are offering, they're finally becoming cost competitive and are offering a lot of superiority. We still are faced with the fact that our electrical grid is nowhere close to capable of recharging all of the electric vehicles that would be needed to electrify the economy. So if you want to get rid of oil and gas, you got to get rid of, if you want to get rid of oil and gas, you've got to provide an alternative that's a complete alternative where you've got the electric distribution grid and everything else that's needed to do it. We're uninvesting in oil and gas too soon. And I think that that means the final years of the age of oil will be defined by high prices, not low prices, which is what most people seem to think. They're thinking, it's oil and gas is getting phased out, so the price is going to go down as less and less demand for it. No, I think what's going to happen is supply is going to go down faster than demand, and supply is going down because people are not investing. It's very expensive and it's very understandable. Who wants to invest in the old pitch? Everybody's seen the old pitch. If we make this investment on this oil well, conventional oil wells before shale oil, for the next 25 years, it's going to be paying off. Well, who cares in 25 years? We don't know what kind of fuel the economy is going to use. Shale wells, really, the economic benefit gets paid off in the first 2 or 3 years. So I think it makes sense to continue investing there. But the investment in offshore oil rigs, we ought to be now really gearing up for deep water offshore exploration, because eventually the shale patch is going to get drilled up like Swiss cheese. There's not going to be enough capacity to add more shale oil, and we're not going to have electrified the economy in time. So I think we get to a really big price squeeze in the end, but it's moving targets. There's lots of policy things that could change this. Right now, we have inflation that I think is driving oil prices. We've got the lack of investment that I just described longer term. Eventually, we're going to get to a point where we've got a real problem unless we start reinvesting, or we can do something much quicker to build out a new electric grid and really, if you were to take all of something I think is very realistic, if you take our previous conversation, suppose the Stephanie Keltons and the AOC said, look, we need to have a green economy. We're just going to make it simple. Every American has the birthright to own a Tesla or whatever your favorite electric car is. You don't have to qualify. You just need to be born in the United States, and you can have one. And we'll make a payment plan for you because it's all going to be subsidized by the federal government. That seems to me like a plausible thing that could happen. They would have to also build out the electric grid. They'd have to do all kinds of stuff. Let's suppose that, and I think it's also possible that they could start subsidizing the purchase of those electric vehicles long before the electric grid is even addressed. Because when you make the promise of everybody's, entitled to an electric vehicle that you qualify for just by being a citizen, That's a way to buy votes. Admitting that we don't actually have the electric grid to support all of those vehicles and it would never work anyway, that's not a way to buy votes. So that's going to get delayed. Eventually, you got too many electric vehicles. It's impossible to charge them all. Nobody planned ahead for this. We realized that it's not possible to build out the fully electrified economy until we redo the entire electric grid. We realized that that's a public works project that's much bigger than anybody understood. It's going to take 10 years to do it. And oh shit, we stopped investing in oil and gas, and now oil's $250 a barrel, and we're having to ration it because we screwed up. I think that's probably where we're headed. But there's so many moving parts. You could easily see where something changes and it goes the other direction.